Right now, as you watch this, your mind is being tested. Every comfort you rely on, every security you take for granted, every excuse you tell yourself about why your life isn't what it should be. In ancient Greece, there lived a philosopher so poor he had to carry water buckets at night just to afford his education. Yet he became known as the strongest mind of his generation. His name was Cleanthes, and he created a 30-second mental test so brutal, so revealing, that it exposes exactly where your character breaks under pressure. By the end of this video, you'll know precisely what separates the mentally weak from the unbreakable. And more importantly, you'll discover how to transform your greatest weakness into your most powerful strength. Most people think poverty is about lacking money. They're wrong. Cleanthes discovered that poverty is a state of mind that reveals everything about who you really are when the world strips away your comforts. Picture this: Athens, 300 years before Christ. The greatest philosophical minds in human history walked these streets, but among them was a man who slept on the ground, ate scraps, and worked menial labor just to survive. While other students had wealthy families funding their education, Cleanthes carried water buckets through the night shift, his hands bleeding, his back aching. His fellow students mocked him. They called him weak. They said he didn't belong, but something extraordinary was happening in that suffering, something that would change how we understand mental strength forever. Cleanthes wasn't just enduring poverty, he was using it as a forge for his character. Every night of hunger became a lesson in discipline. Every moment of exhaustion became training for resilience. Every insult became practice for emotional control. He was conducting the most brutal psychological experiment in human history on himself, and what he discovered would shock the ancient world. The poorest student had become the most powerful mind. But here's what's truly remarkable. Cleanthes didn't just survive this experience, he systematized it. He turned his suffering into a precise method for testing and building mental strength, a method so effective that it would influence Stoic philosophy for centuries. The question is, what did he discover about the human mind that we've forgotten today? What did poverty teach him that comfort never could? The answer lies in what I call Cleanthes' poverty test. But before I reveal exactly how this test works, you need to understand why it's more relevant today than ever before. In our modern world, we've created the perfect storm for mental weakness. We have comfort without challenge, security without struggle, pleasure without purpose. We've eliminated the very conditions that forge strong character. And the result? An epidemic of anxiety, depression, and a profound sense that something is missing from our lives. We have everything our ancestors could have dreamed of, yet we feel more fragile than ever. Why? Because we've never been tested. We've never discovered what we're truly capable of when everything is stripped away. This is where Cleanthes' wisdom becomes revolutionary. He understood that poverty, properly understood, isn't the absence of wealth, it's the presence of clarity. When you remove all the external supports, all the distractions, all the excuses, what remains is your true self, your actual character, your real strength or weakness. Cleanthes developed what he called the discipline of desire, the idea that every want, every craving, every feeling of lack is actually a doorway to power, not by getting what you want, but by transforming your relationship with wanting itself. Here's how his test works. For 30 seconds, you imagine losing everything, not just your money, but your reputation, your relationships, your health, your security, everything that you use to define yourself, gone. Now pay attention to what happens in your mind. Where does it go first? What story does it tell? What emotion rises? This isn't just imagination, this is archaeological work on your psyche. You're excavating the deepest layers of your character to see what's actually there when everything else is stripped away. Most people fail this test immediately. Their minds flood with panic, desperation, rage. They cannot even imagine existing without their external supports. But here's what Cleanthes discovered. The people who can pass this test, who can find peace even in imagined total loss, these people become unbreakable in real life. But the test reveals something even more profound than your fears. What Cleanthes understood, and what modern neuroscience now confirms, is that your brain's response to imagined loss reveals the exact structure of your mental prison. Every panicked response, every desperate thought, every story about what you need to be okay, these are the bars of a cage you've built around your own potential. When you imagine losing your wealth and you feel terror, that terror is showing you that you've made your peace of mind dependent on something outside your control. When you imagine losing others' approval and you feel rage, that rage is revealing that you've handed your self-worth over to people who may not even care about you. When you imagine losing your comfort and you feel despair, that despair is exposing how you've become addicted to ease instead of growth. This is why Cleanthes called poverty a teacher, not because being poor is good, but because the fear of poverty reveals every way you've made your happiness dependent on external circumstances. And here's the crucial insight. Once you see these dependencies clearly, you can begin to break them. Modern psychology calls this cognitive behavioral therapy. Ancient Stoics called it the discipline of perception. The principle is the same. Change how you interpret your circumstances, and you change your emotional reality. But Cleanthes took this further than anyone before or since. He didn't just practice imagining loss, he actually lived it for years. And what he discovered in that experience was the secret to unshakable mental strength. He found that when you truly accept the possibility of losing everything, you become capable of achieving anything. When you're no longer afraid of poverty, you can take the risks that wealth requires. When you're no longer desperate for approval, you can speak the truths that earn real respect. When you're no longer attached to comfort, you can endure the discomfort that all growth demands. This is the paradox that Cleanthes lived. By embracing the thing he feared most, he became immune to fear itself. But here's where his insight becomes practical for your life today. I want to tell you about Sarah, a client who came to me 3 years ago, completely paralyzed by the fear of financial ruin. She was making 6 figures but couldn't sleep at night, constantly checking her bank account, hoarding money she was afraid to invest or enjoy. She was living in a mental prison built from the fear of poverty. I introduced her to Cleanthes' 30-second test. At first, she couldn't even complete it. The mere thought of losing her savings sent her into panic attacks. But gradually, with practice, something shifted. She began to see that her fear of poverty was actually creating the very mental state that poverty represents: scarcity, desperation, spiritual emptiness. By truly accepting the possibility of financial loss, she found the courage to start the business she'd been dreaming about for years. Today, she's not just wealthier than before, but more importantly, she's free from the fear that once controlled her entire life. This is the practical power of Cleanthes' method. When you stop being afraid of external loss, you start building internal strength. When you stop depending on circumstances for your peace, you become capable of changing those circumstances in ways you never imagined possible. But the transformation goes deeper than just overcoming fear. Cleanthes discovered that poverty consciousness, properly understood, is actually abundance consciousness. When you truly don't need external things to be okay, you become magnetic to those very things. People are drawn to your self-sufficiency, opportunities flow toward your fearlessness, resources accumulate around your non-attachment. This isn't mystical thinking, this is practical psychology. Desperation repels, neediness creates scarcity. But genuine self-sufficiency, the kind that Cleanthes developed through his poverty discipline, becomes a foundation for creating wealth, relationships, and achievements that no external force can take away, because they're built on who you are, not on what you have. The ancient Stoics had a phrase, memento mori, remember death. But Cleanthes added something even more powerful, memento paupertas, remember poverty, not to create fear, but to create freedom. Every day, spend those 30 seconds imagining the loss of everything external, not to torture yourself, but to discover the unshakable core that no circumstance can touch. Notice what stories your mind tells about what you need. Question every dependency. Challenge every attachment, not because external things are bad, but because when you don't need them for your peace, you become infinitely more effective at creating and keeping them. This is how the poorest philosopher became the strongest mind. This is how someone with nothing became someone who could not be broken by anything. The test isn't really about poverty. It's about discovering the wealth that exists beyond circumstances, the strength that exists beyond comfort, the peace that exists beyond security. Take the test today. 30 seconds. everything gone, what remains? That's where your real power begins. That's where your unbreakable life is built. That's where you discover what Cleanthes knew. The person who has nothing left to lose has everything to gain.